So you've practiced pulling a few dozen shots and feel like you have a consistent technique. Awesome, that's one variable checked off the list. But what if your espresso isn't tasting quite how you'd like it to? Let's take a look at the other variables we can manipulate to get delicious, well-rounded espresso and discuss some troubleshooting tips along the way. A well-pulled espresso should have a generous amount of reddish to golden brown crema with a syrupy body and balanced flavors that linger pleasantly for minutes afterward. The crema is the hallmark of espresso, being an emulsion of fats and what we call volatile aromatics that contribute positively to the sensory experience in the cup. Lots of crema is indicative of a fresh coffee, so if your espresso's crema is thin, the first thing you should do is make sure the coffee you're using is fresh and has been stored properly before adding it to the hopper. Now, we're using a fresh coffee, but it's not tasting quite like we want it. Let's make sure we're using a proper recipe. For this next part, I recommend you do have a gram scale large enough to hold the portafilter, 2 small demi spoons like these, a timer, a tasting cup, and something to spit into. We don't want to get over-caffeinated. First, let's take a look at our dose, or the amount of dry coffee we're putting into the portafilter. The brew basket is designed to hold a specific amount of coffee and can vary from machine to machine. If you're unsure what yours was designed for, pop it out of the portafilter and examine the sides. The amount should be printed there. This particular basket is 18 grams. Another way to check is to zero out the portafilter on a scale, overfill the basket, gently wipe off the excess, then measure the weight. That's pretty close. Since our basket was designed for 18 grams, let's start our dose there. Our next variable is the yield, or how much wet espresso we're brewing. Typically, you'll want your yield to be twice the dose weight. So if I'm using a dose of 18 grams of coffee, I'll start off by shooting for a yield of 36 grams by weight, give or take. The next variable, time. Generally, we want the espresso to brew for between 20 and 30 seconds. Most coffees will extract just enough during that time frame to give us a tasty espresso. Our final variable is grind, or how fine or coarse the coffee is. Making our coffee finer, for instance, will make our espresso flow slower, and making it coarser will make it flow faster. We'll be changing grind to make sure we hit our target yield within the target time frame. So far, we're going to use a consistent technique, and we verified our coffee is fresh. Next, we're going to use a starting recipe of 18 grams of coffee, target a yield of 36 grams by weight, and get there within 20 to 30 seconds, adjusting our grind as needed. Now that we have our starting recipe, let's try it out. Wipe and purge, then set the portafilter on the scale and zero it out. Let's check our dose. That's a bit too much, so I'll use my spoon to remove the excess. Distribute and tamp straight down at about 40 pounds of pressure. Wipe the wings, lock it in, and brew immediately, starting the timer as soon as we hit the brew button. Wow, that's flowing pretty slowly. Let's stop our brew at 30 seconds. Weigh the yield. Oh, looks like it's under our minimum threshold. Taking a look at our variables, can I make this better with time? Well, no, I'm already at the maximum time for my recipe. And since I'm already at my target dose, the only variable I can change is grind. The espresso is flowing a little too slow, so I'm going to make the grind coarser. This should increase the speed of flow. Make sure to purge a shot while changing the grind, then purge a second shot afterward to clear out any of the old particle size that may still be in the grinding chamber. Let's try that recipe again. Pull out the portafilter, wipe and purge, then set the portafilter on the scale and zero it out. Check our dose. See how the dose changed? The grinder runs based on time, so when I made the grind finer, the burrs that grind the coffee were actually moved closer together, and so less coffee was able to make it through in the same amount of time. Remember, if you change the grind, you may have to adjust the time on your grinder as well to get the correct dose. All right, 18 grams. Distribute and tamp straight down 40 pounds. Wipe the wings, lock it in, and brew immediately. Again, starting the timer as soon as we hit the brew button. Let's brew all the way to 30 seconds. So this time we're over our yield target. Can I make this better with time? I think I can. If I pulled it for less time, I would get less espresso. So let's try that one more time. So we've got 18 grams in, and I'm going to stop it at around 25 seconds. Let's check that yield. Okay, we've hit our target recipe. Let's give it a sip. Hey, that's pretty nice. So let's review our target recipe one more time. Start with the dose, or amount of ground coffee that your portafilter basket was designed for. Aim for a yield of twice the dose weight, and brew for between 20 and 30 seconds. This recipe is a great starting point for any machine, but here's a few more tips. Feel free to manipulate the variables within the recipe range. If you've got some wiggle room with your time and yield, try pulling for a higher or lower output and see if you can really hone in the flavor. Also, before you taste, make sure you stir your espresso well and assess it within 30 seconds of brewing. Waiting too long will cause that crema to dissipate, and it may end up tasting sour and throw you off. Making consistently good espresso can be a challenge, so don't stray from a consistent technique. Check your espresso at the start of a shift and make sure to clean and backflush your machine daily to your manufacturer's guidelines. Cheers and happy brewing.